Hello, today we'll start learning about a new logic system called predicate logic. We'll first review some reasons why we need to go beyond sentential logic. As we've already seen, sentential logic can account for the validity of arguments whenever that validity depends on the truth functional connectives, such as not, and, or, if then, and the like. So the validity of the argument Al sleeps and Beth walks, therefore Beth walks, is entirely due to the way in which the conjunction and connects sentences, which in SL is codified by the rules of the ampersand. And in fact, the intuitive validity of this argument can be completely captured in sentential logic, since it fits this perfectly valid SL form. The same goes for the argument, if John is sleeping, then he, that is, John, is snoring. John isn't snoring, therefore John isn't sleeping. The validity of this inference depends on the way the if-then connective relates pairs of sentences, which is partly reflected in the rules for the horseshoe. And again, the reasons why this argument is valid can be encapsulated in this truth-preserving pattern of inference, while the invalidity of this argument can be explained by the fact that it conforms to this non-truth-preserving pattern. Nevertheless, there are arguments whose validity does not depend on the sentential connectives. Consider this argument. Al plays guitar, therefore someone plays guitar. Or this other. All Welshmen are Britons. All Britons are Europeans. Therefore all Welshmen are Europeans. Both of these arguments are intuitively valid. You can't accept the premises without also accepting the conclusions. But can they be shown valid with the tools of sentential logic? Let's first consider this argument. How would we symbolize this in SL? Well, Al plays guitar is an atomic sentence, since it has no sentential connectives. So we have no choice but to represent it with a single sentence letter, such as A. And the same goes for the conclusion, which we can represent with a B. So, as far as sentential logic is concerned, the argument is A, therefore B. Is this argument valid in SL? Of course not. Nothing stops us from assigning T to the premise and F to the conclusion. And so we get an easy counterexample. And the same goes for this other argument, which would be of the form X, Y, therefore Z. This form is also clearly invalid. So while the English argument is valid, its best representation in terms of SL sentences is not. Furthermore, SL can't distinguish between the valid argument to the left and the invalid argument to the right, since both are assigned exactly the same form. So, the set of arguments whose validity can be expressed in SL is only a subset of the whole variety of intuitively valid English language arguments. As we said at the beginning, there's plenty of valid arguments in which the validity does not depend on the sentential connectives. Now, in the examples we saw earlier, which were the deciding factors? In these examples, and in many others, validity depends on considerations such as the predicates that occur in the premises and in the conclusion, the relationship between the terms occurring in the premises and the conclusion, and which words apply to the sentences in the argument, such as all and some. These words, by the way, are called quantifiers. And their different distribution is the reason why the argument at the top is valid, whereas the one at the bottom is invalid. Now, sentence logic is blind to these considerations, since they have to do with internal structure or composition of sentences, and sentence logic only deals with relations among sentences. For sentential logic, atomic sentences are like black boxes that can't be opened and are completely opaque to the system. It's irrelevant to the rules of SL whether I like A to stand for a very short English sentence or for a very long one. They are treated as atoms without any internal structure. SL can only tell us that the two black boxes at the top are related to one another in one way, and those at the bottom in another way, and that's all. However, predicates and quantifiers and other components that, as we said earlier, can be crucial to validity, are internal to the sentence. And sentential logic doesn't allow us to look into the innards of atomic sentences. However, predicate logic does allow us to take a peek under the hood so as to keep track of the internal components. And so, we can trace the relationships across sentences among the parts of that internal structure. Okay, In our next video, we'll introduce another logical system called Predicate Logic, which expands on SL and allows us to capture a wider range of valid argument patterns. Bye.